Give me about 5 seconds here. Okay, go.
Awesome. So hi, I'm Dr. Twyla Campbell, and just kind of a context, I'm a research psychologist at Campbell, and one of my specialties is understanding users and helping to inform design teams to create their products and processes with their user mindset.
Yeah, I'm Campbell. I'm Security Operations Manager, security researcher, and enthusiast. I do training and teaching.
So the concept today is hopefully relatively straightforward. That's why you're here, interested, one would assume, is we're going to give you some ideas on how to develop kind of processes and security training so that other people are more willing to follow them. And as kind of a big point is you can't make people do something, you can just try to get them to want to. So the plan is a little bit of introduction into changing behaviors, and then what are the possible assets you have and challenges you may be facing, and then we're going to go through kind of 4 principles of changing behavior. For each of the principles, I'll give you a bit of a theory, why common practices might not be working, and then how to make it work successfully. You don't have to do these sequentially. It's not actually do 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. People are messy. You can't tell you to do X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden everything will happen the way you want it to do. What I can do is these are concepts you can follow, and that will give you an idea on what to change and test and adapt to your behavior so you can get other people to do what you want them to do. Convince them to want to do it. You can't get people to do something. Which is a big point in the next slide. Things to remember, you can't make people do something. It may sound like I'm overstating this, but it's a really important concept because you can't. It's kind of an absolute of the world. You can't force people to do something. If you try, not only are you going to fail, you're going to ruin your relationship with them in terms of professionally or personally. If you tell people, you need to do this and this, otherwise you're going to lose all your data, otherwise you're going to get, your computer's going to be infected, the world will explode, your laptop's going to die and I can't fix it, because that could happen. When they screw up and you fix it, you have just said, well, actually, what I just said about warning you doesn't apply anymore. You've just lost a lot of credibility, and it's really hard to get credibility back. Another thing to remember is you can control your behavior. You have to change if you want other people to change, and not like personally as who you are as a person, like who cares about that. The point is to change what you're doing in your interactions with them. Kind of Bruce Schneider's concept of the security mindset. You can't export the security mindset. Other people don't think that way. What you have to do is take on a user mindset, which is how, give you some steps on how to make that happen. And finally, change is a long-term process. You can't just do this once and then everyone will do what you want them to do. What you have to remember is it's not just you're training somebody to behave differently, and you're training something to behave differently in a world that is constantly changing. Security procedures you have in place today probably aren't going to be the same tomorrow or next year. So you have to check in, make sure that what they're doing is still relevant to what you're trying to get them to do. And that maybe they're doing exactly what you told them last year, but that's no longer relevant. So you can't just develop a procedure, change this one interaction, and all of a sudden everyone's going to do what you want them to do. So just keep in mind that you have to keep working on it. So, some assets and challenges you may have. Assets, probably a security expert, that's why you're here. That is fantastic. You know the stuff cold. You're probably providing some sort of security training or information to people, and you want to know how to do that more effectively. Also, for whatever reason, your users are required to follow your security rules. They may be because it's a legal requirement, a company requirement, or whatever, they want to follow them. On the flip side, you probably don't have any direct authority, and by direct authority I mean you can't fire them if they don't behave securely. You probably can't give them a raise if they do behave securely. That's a hard thing. If you could do that, it's much easier to make people do what you want to get people to do what they want to do. Convince them to want to do that. Sorry. It is an important distinction, to me at least. You're probably not picking who your users are. You can't say, I'm just going to work with this team and ignore all these other people in the company. I'm just going to work with the legal department because this is a legal requirement and they will want to behave securely. but I'm going to ignore all the CPAs, I'm going to ignore the designers because they don't get me. You probably don't have that option. Your users are not security experts, and this is not only are they not security experts, they don't want to be security experts. They're not interested in being security experts, that's why they're not in security. That's the other, don't have to not security products. They have a life, they have other things. Now maybe one of your CPAs is really interested in cryptography thanks to like a World War II history buff. She's the exception. She's not the normal people. Most people aren't really interested in security and don't want to become experts. And the other big challenge is the pop security culture, like pop psychology security culture. Blech, too many S's. They think that hacking on the show 24 is accurate because that's how it's portrayed in the media. Hackers, war games, that's how this community works. They don't know any better. They don't want to know. This is what they've been shown. Why would they know any better? This isn't their field. So that's one of the things you have to remember is you're the experts and you're trying to talk to non-experts. And so instead of trying to get them to change, you have to change what you're doing. Okay, so for each of these, like I said, we're going to go through. This is an overview of what the plan is for testing. I'm going to talk about the theory, eat your own dog food, challenges you're probably facing, and the solutions on how to fix that. So, off time.
Right. So the first thing is when you're testing something, you got to eat your own dog food. You got to make sure that security, the procedures that you're giving them, the ideas that you're giving them, are ones that you follow and can follow. Not just once, but they are things you do. I mean, how often do you deal with a process? It's like, that's a great thing. Backup. I do backups already. How many of you guys do your backups every day? You do the father, grandfather, son? We know we're supposed to do it. How many people actually follow your own procedures? I mean, it's just one of those things that we know. It's best practices that we don't do, and we expect other people to do it. That's probably not going to work out so well. I mean, it's just one thing we got to remember. So we got to understand. We got to understand that we're asking people to do things. They don't necessarily understand why it needs to be done. Got to explain that. We got to make sure that they understand that we're doing it. It's easy for us, or at least feasible for us.
No, this isn't a test like if you can be bothered to do it, that means it's okay. It just means it's a baseline. If you can't be bothered, then it's too hard. If you can be bothered, it may still be too hard, but that's a quick, easy way to test whether or not it's okay. So here's one of the challenges.
One of the most glaring examples is recently in the news. If you've been following, I don't know what politics or political sites are following, but recently in Afghanistan there was recently a couple of years ago, they had a potential walk-in for somebody who knew where Osama bin Laden was, allegedly. So it's a couple of years back now. And they had this really good lead on the guy, and then a whole bunch of, I think this is the CIA Afghanistan base. They have security procedures. You must follow these. These are life and death. You've got to do this. They had a walk-in. Awesome. Let's pull this guy in. He didn't want to follow the security procedures. It's okay. He'll be cool. This was the largest loss of life in CIA history. People who bet their lives on security procedures couldn't be bothered to follow them, and it cost them. Imagine what it's like for somebody who they're following the security procedures. Their only consequence is you getting pissed at them. They don't see anything else. They're not betting their life. They're not betting anything. There's no consequence to them. Even when the consequence is phenomenal, security people don't always follow it.
So, how do you fix this? Test your procedures. And again, when I say test them, this is a behavioral change you're looking at. Don't just try it once and like, yeah, I can totally do the father, grandfather, son thing. Content, color. I'm not a security person. That's why he's here. You don't just do that once and walk away. Do it every day for a week. And if it's a once a day thing, do it for a month. If it's something you have to log out of asking people to log out of the computer every time they stand up. Do that every time you stand up, every time you get a cup of coffee, every time you have to leave to go fix something. Sign out and log back in. Just see if it's too much of a bother. If you can't do it, they sure as hell aren't. And then also learn about what your users are doing. You may be sitting at your desk all day. They may be getting up every 5 minutes to go help somebody. They may not have a desktop computer. They may be only doing everything through mobile devices. Talk to them and ask. And especially if It can be hard. Like, how do you just send, depending on your culture, you can just send an email. Hi, I'm trying to work on this. This is who I am. Can you give me 5 minutes and answer like these questions? How long do you sit at your computer? How often do you get up? What, of course, it's all depending on what kind of security procedures you're putting in place. But just go talk to them and find out what they're doing. People love to help. If you present it as, I need a few minutes of your time because you're an expert on what you do, and I'm trying to help you. If you give me 5 minutes, I will make your life slightly easier. Very few people can't be bothered to do that, or at least they feel good about asking. You're giving kind of a positive encounter with security, which is an important thing to have in the culture of changing something. So there's always going to be things where they still have to do something, and it's too much work. That's going to be the case. Sometimes they don't want to do it, but you still need to have this procedure in place. And in that case, do what you can to minimize the impact and reduce the amount of work they have to put into it.
And one of the classic examples is everybody gives, Microsoft gets a lot of stick, sometimes with very good reason. But some things they've done very well. One of the best things in life that they've done is automatic backup for Word. How much effort has that saved people writing their thesis, writing stuff? Everybody knows you're supposed to be backing up. I just lost my thesis. It used to be an ongoing joke. I mean, there's movies about, I lost my thesis, how am I going to get it back? Automatic backup, it backs up every 5 minutes. All right, it's not perfect, but 5 minutes, 30 minutes of backup time for your word processing document is way better than, oh my God, it's gone. So Microsoft realized that people aren't backing up. They took it upon themselves to do it for the users seamlessly in the background. The number of complaints they get because of automatic backup is mostly because it's not working, not because it's working too well. I mean, this is a perfect example. Just take it off. If you can take it off the user's plate, take it off the user's plate.
Okay, so for the next big concept, as part of this leading in seamless segue into reducing their work. So the concept, make their life easier. The challenge is security is a burden. That's just a problem with what security is. And solution, seriously, just reduce the amount of work they have to do if you want it to work. So the theory. Users don't think security is their job at all, not even close. In an ideal world, security is just an asset, like the Microsoft Word example. The users literally have to do nothing, and everything's just a little better. That's an ideal world. We do not live in that. So, conceptually, they just don't think of security as a job. If it crosses their mind at all, that is totally somebody else's problem. If security crosses their mind, it's your job. That's what you're there for. And once you ask somebody, like, well, you need to do this to behave more securely, what you can be doing is basically asking in a way, like, hey, I need you to do this to make my life easier. That's adding a cost to their life and their work. And a cost is time, physical activity, or a mental burden. If they have to think about it, that's a cost. And it doesn't seem like much because that's the world you're steeped in. Security is so important to you. Here, you care about it, it's interesting, probably one of your hobbies. You forget that if that's not my interest, you're putting a lot of work on my plate that I don't want because I have my own job and now you're asking me to do yours. That's not gonna happen. So, the challenge. Here's just some tasks that the compensation benefits specialist I threw together. This is the stuff you're thinking about on, say, a daily basis in terms of just their work life. This does not include the fact that they need to get their furnace fixed or that they're not feeling too well about this other thing in their personal life or anything outside of their hobbies. This is just the crap they're thinking about at work. So when you add security, what you're trying to do is, so this is your life and all the different priorities you have, but I need you to do this. That doesn't work. You know this. You've probably tried it, if not in some other, not in security, in some other topic of, I really care about this thing, and you don't care at all. Never mind. Conversations like, I love the, no, never cares about me. All right, I'll stop talking now. Unfortunately, you want them to do something about it, but you know this approach doesn't work. So one of the other challenges you're probably facing is telling about all the future benefits they're going to have. What you're telling them in a way is, here's now, and if you put in this effort, you can get all these fantastic benefits of security. If you back up your data, you're not going to have a problem later. This is fine for now, but it's kind of hard to understand what the benefits of security are, especially if you're not a specialist. Like, if I don't back up my data, it'll all go away. Maybe, perhaps, under these specific circumstances, but under these other circumstances, you can actually fix it for me. So as far as I, as the user, am concerned, sometimes this matters, and I have no way of telling which way or not, and most of the time you'll just fix it. It's a pain in the butt for you, but again, I'm putting in the effort as far as I'm concerned, and saving you time. That's not my priority. The other kind of thing with this image is, imagine it's not benefit of security, it's benefits of working out. Right now, today, Wednesday, getting up in the morning early on Sunday, I'm totally gonna go jogging. That's a thing I can do. It'll reduce my risk of health, it'll all these fantastic things, I'll look better, all the social things I want, all the things my doctor's been telling me. Those again, nebulous results, but here's the problem. Sunday morning, no, early, getting up right now at 6 in the morning, the effort seems way too much to get out. So I can't see the benefits anymore. And especially when the benefits are so nebulous, this little black part gets bigger and bigger and bigger as I get closer to the I actually have to do something. I don't want to get up and go jogging. There's a lot of legitimate research that most people know about health benefits of regular exercise. They still don't do it. That is their life and death moment in a kind of conceptual scheme. We're not talking about life and death. We're talking about more work for you. I'm really not that worried about it as your user. So that's one of the big problems you are facing. All right, we know this. This is not news. So how do we fix it? Make the black bar smaller. Reduce the amount of effort. So even as it's closer to the time when I have to do something, I can always see the benefits as they're related to me. It is always about me, the user. And that's what I mean by the user mindset. This isn't about you as a security people. For sure. It's not. So I have a solution. Do the analysis of security costs and benefits for them. You're the experts. This is what you know. Figure it out. Again, things are nebulous, and I'm just throwing that up there. Just do that. I'm sure it's really easy, and there's just a big list you can go check online. Like, oh yeah, Wikipedia, it's totally got this, everything I need to know. That exists, I'm sure. Yeah, maybe it's not. But you do know what's relevant to your company. You do know what's relevant probably to some legal standards. You can access that information. You do know what the security threats are, or can find out, or learn from this kind of thing.
You know, you also have to differentiate between the cool new threats you've heard about and the cool new threats that are out there versus what is actually going to be a problem for the users. I mean, all right, all this cool SCADA stuff that's coming out, I mean, I've already told you, all the cool SCADA stuff, you know, you work for a nonprofit. When was the last, there's no SCADA stuff in there. They don't have to worry about it. Don't put it on their threat list. Where does it target for your users maximum effort?
And that's good context. Thank you. Yay, teamwork. So just keep in mind and do that for them. And as part of that, identify the key security behaviors. Don't overload them with a big checklist of too many things because they don't know how to identify which is more important or not. And they don't want to learn that. So reduce it, and I mean a few, I mean 3 or 4 at most. 4 is probably too many. 3 things they have to do. So, as an example.
Yeah, so we got, I mean, the first thing, everybody has the SANS 20 best practices for security thing. They're good best practices. No user's going to follow 20 that specific points. It's not going to happen. So what you've got to do is be the expert, make it so that they make yourself available, presentable, so that when people come to you with questions, you answer the dumb questions well. Answer the what is a mouse? I mean, really, what is the difference between click and double click? When would I use one? When would I use the other one? Answer the basic questions. Set yourself up as the the guy who knows security and is helpful, not the guy who knows security and well, I don't know what that guy's on about. Every time I talk to him, it's APT this and whatever. Answer the questions, solve the problem. It's been effective in my company. They come, they can ask you the questions, and then they start asking you the better questions, and then you expand on them. You give them a little bit, and you present a little bit more knowledge, just a little bit more each time, and they keep coming back for more. And suddenly, if they have any questions about security, is this a good link to click on? What does a spam email look like? Is this spam email? They bring that to you before they click, rather than after. And the second part of that is, once they've clicked, the old hypothetical Japanese proverb is fix the problem, not the blame. Don't go after them about them doing something stupid. Don't tell them you've done something foolish. Quietly think it, go into the closet and weep or laugh as required. Fix what they've done. Make sure that it's, resolve it as best you can, and make sure that they're not feeling bad for coming to you, because you don't want to deter them from reporting security incidents. There are people out there who are interested, not many, but if you can set yourself up as a repository, as somebody who's worth contacting, more people will come to you and you will get more information, and you will get information earlier in the problem, rather than, how come 50 machines have been compromised and only one person reported? Didn't you notice that the computer was shut down for the last 3 weeks? Oh no, IT's just screwed that up. Okay. Make sure that don't blame them, don't make it their problem or their fault. It's you. We have to solve it. And another interesting thing is to make a conceptual model is to help reinforce to the users that think of it as the internet is like a city. It's a really old metaphor, but there are good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. If you're going to CNN, you don't have to be as worried as if you're going to your favorite dodgy website hacker downloading whereas pornography, whatever you're downloading there. Be a little bit more careful here, be less careful here. That way they're not in total panic mode every time they're on the internet, or as we will discuss in later slides.
Yes. And this is, again, an example of 3 things anyone can remember to do. If I'm confused, ask security. If I ask security a stupid question, they're not going to make me feel stupid. They're going to answer it. And also, no fault reporting. If I tell them something bad's happened, I'm not going to get a lot of crap for it. They'll just fix it for me, which means that I'm more likely to ask security because we're building, again, ongoing thing. Trust, yes.
What happens if your fix is not what they like? Because I wipe and rebuild computers when they're hacked. And I do about 80 or 90 a day. So I'm not well loved in my organization because I'm the guy that says, sorry.
Ongoing, it's an ongoing policy. That's the problem. Is that's our policy is flatten and
No,
rebuild.
it's faster to do it that way or spend 3 weeks wiping and cleaning each one.
Exactly.
And rebuilding it from scratch. No, it's just faster to flush it and here's a new one.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's one of the ultimate problems is it's easier for us.
And them.
And then, well, if they're complaining, it's like, here's a new computer, I'll get you your data back in a couple of weeks. I mean, it is an ongoing problem. It's something that we just got to work on. And I get the education of why I'm doing this and making sure that you're coming to me with, I can get you your good stuff back. Anytime you can lower the burden on the user for your actions, that's the best you can do. Like if you can pull off their pictures before you wipe and rebuild, if you can do any of the little gestures go a long way in this one. Little tiny gestures of, I'll get your pictures back and then I'll wipe and rebuild it. I'll get you, that report that was due on Wednesday in 30 minutes. That'll come back first and then we'll get you your new process. So anytime you can make their burden smaller and a small favor, you're just in a better place.
And as part of this is kind of an empathetic thing where I know this is terrible. Unfortunately, this is the only way I can do this. I realize this is upsetting and bad for you because this is your computer and all your stuff. But it's, like I said, change is a process. If you really want people to behave differently, you have to start interacting with them differently to some extent. And I don't know your specifics. We can get to that later, and I can give you some more advice. But yes?
It's also an opportunity to
Trust me,
Not
we've,
something.
Without making it sound like a lecture or you stupid, you should have been doing this. This is a terrible thing that
We've got
happened.
this thing that you can use. So
Yeah.
next time that this happens, hopefully not, you can just double click your Y drive and oh look, it's all there still.
Yes.
Already got this set up.
Yes, exactly. That kind of concept. But again, more details later. Afterwards. So the next step in kind of the principles is use the right language. The theory, when in Rome, she's like, oh, we can do it in Latin in a second. Problem, I seriously hope you all understand the problem of not speaking a correct language. It's like going to Portugal and demanding they speak Japanese at you. They might actually. That's probably a really bad example because a lot of people. I think give yourself my mistake. Context. Okay, and then the solution is minimize jargon. Right? Yes. Oh, 3. See? That's why I have notes. So, the theory. If you're in Rome, live the Roman way. If you are elsewhere, live how they do there. Like I mentioned previously, you're trying to bring a security mindset to some extent to people who don't have one, don't want one. Instead of doing that in a way that's forcing your language and culture onto them, learn their language and culture and then present your information in that way. That is way easier to say than it is to do. So we have some steps. These are actually numbered in an order. This is how they should be done. So overview, minimize your jargon. That's kind of the key thing. So you want to identify your jargon, you want to remove what you can, replace if you have to, and then at the last resort, keep your jargon but explain it. So, what do I mean by these? Step 1, identify your jargon words. Now this is tough. You're experts. Jargon is fantastic when you're talking to people in your industry because you're way faster way of communication. It's way more efficient. That's why jargon exists. It is a wonderful way to speak quickly and intelligently on a topic of interest to people who are all in the same industry or field or whatever context, hobby, I don't know. So it's fantastic. But it also means that you're steeped in your own culture and it's hard to step out and realize what words you're using that are actually jargon. Like phishing, spam, spearfishing, these are all jargon words. These mean very specific things to you. Probably don't mean that to most people. I actually am positive they don't mean that to most people. So first step is figure out what you're saying that is actually jargon, and even if you don't realize it. So we've identified our jargon words. These are our examples for today. Step 2, remove the jargon. Get rid of the words because they're confusing. So replace it, just remove it. Instead of using phishing, spam, spearfishing, they're just emails you can ignore. The CPA seriously does not need to know the difference or what those mean. It's just emails you can ignore. Yes.
we actually have very specific language that we use for this, and the reason we don't use things like emails you can ignore is because I work in a university, and emails you can ignore includes emails from the students if they decide that they're spam, so we say malicious email, and it's actually a lot simpler. It also means it's easier for people to identify it as malicious. And if someone did something bad using a computer, I'm just going to call you guys out on this. None of my users are that dumb.
I'm not saying they're dumb. I'm saying it's a different field. I am not.
Fair enough.
It's, again, you're talking about academics. I'm not always working with people who have necessarily a high school education.
Neither am I. I didn't say I was working with academics. Don't assume. Our staff are composed of everything from mailroom all the way up to high-level PhDs.
And so it's always context dependent.
Yeah.
Use whatever terms you need to use.
Fair enough.
And they don't have to know the difference. I mean, the number of people that have to know the difference or the specifics between hacking and cracking.
Well, the term attack is kind of useful for that, don't you think?
Right, but again, remove the jargon, make it so that somebody knows what that is. We're just pulling it out to the most generic.
So for you, it's malicious emails. Okay, fine. That's a term that works for your group. You're not saying phishing or spam. You're saying malicious emails. You're doing this already. Yes! That is fantastic. I'm so excited when that happens. I'm not kidding. Whatever language works, that's the point. These are the concepts, and this is, yes, very obvious. But I understand that. I can translate that pretty easily into another language, non-English speakers. Who are you talking to? Why are you trying to talk to them? Keep that in mind whenever you're developing your language. But yes, perfect example of another way to do it. So, and another thing, so the next step, we remove the jargon words, but sometimes you can't. sometimes you can just replace them. If you don't want to remove the jargon words entirely, people are already using a terminology that they know and want to keep it, except the pop culture version. People in general, don't care about the difference, for example, between phishing and spearphishing and spam. It's just spam. That's what that word means in pop culture now. It's technically incorrect, and I know that's probably going to drive you nuts a lot, except that this isn't about you. As soon as you start getting into a discussion of technical specificities, you are saying, this is about me and my field. This has nothing to do with you. And that's the opposite of what we want to do. It's all about your users right now in this concept, in this world talk. If you say, well, actually, means I can start ignoring you. Those two words. I can just zone out because you're going to go on about something, and eventually you'll get back to the point and I can start paying attention. So just remove the terms. So
one of the examples that comes up in pop culture again is from the Mythbusters. I'm sure a number of people watch the Mythbusters here. They actually got, it's kind of a meta joke inside when they're talking about the exploding pants episode. Who's ever seen that one? And they're talking about, and they've got this guy, and they get into a fairly technical discussion about whether or not the pants actually exploded. And it's like, well, no, it was just an incredibly fast burn. Okay, technically correct, but you were in a pair of pants that disappeared in a ball of fire, and under a second, they exploded. You're gonna touch somebody. I mean, if you had a conversation with a guy who said, my pants exploded, you're like, actually, no, that was in fact an incredibly fast burn. No, move on. They exploded. Actually, while discussing this, the minor technical inaccuracies, it wasn't in fact the Mythbusters, it was the Bill crew who had that conversation. Minor technical inaccuracy, moving on for the point of the story. That's the key.
Yes. Good point. As if we didn't already know this. So this is kind of, again, the third step. If you want to identify what you can, remove it as much as you can and create new jargon. That's what jargon is for. If you can't do that, things are already being used in the common tongue. Just accept that you have to be technically incorrect. And then it gives you a fantastic opportunity if somebody's like, well, wait, I thought phishing and spam were slightly different. It's the XKCD comment of, yes, that is in fact true, and now we're going to learn something fantastic, and I will scale my enthusiasm to be appropriate to how much information you want. It's the same thing as talking with people who are of different ages. Talking to a 5-year-old, that is not the same conversation you're having with your peers. I hope.
Sometimes.
We haven't met our peers.
Yeah, sometimes not who you're talking to. Again, you know, these are all skills you have. You know how to do this. Just thinking about it in a different way and applying what you already know in a different context, and here are ways of doing it. So finally, explain the jargon words. Sometimes you can't get rid of it. Sometimes you're having a conversation and jargon fights jargon. You aren't the only people who have jargon. Everyone does. And there's a lot of words in the English language, but you repeat them a lot. So explain what you mean if you have to.
So this is, just a silly example that actually happened to me recently. Is I was getting ready, I was doing a bunch of vulnerability scanning. So I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a couple of weeks because of the change window. And my uncle calls me up, he's a dentist, bright boy, he's been to school, knows his stuff. And I told him, he calls me, why are you still up? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I'm doing some scanning. It's like, wow, how many pages do you have to do? Yeah, no, a little bit different. Perfectly reasonable explanation, same word usage. Yeah, no, actually I'm doing something different. I'm doing both. But again, jargon in our case, totally different concept. Didn't realize that was going to be a problem. Here it comes in.
And this is a little harking back to talking to your users. If you can learn their jargon, use theirs instead of yours. If you're talking to a lawyer and you use IP, you better be meaning intellectual property. In my world, I/O does not mean input-output. It is something entirely different. But when I'm talking to you, I'm not going to say I'm an I/O psychologist because that makes no sense at all. I will say I'm a research psychologist. Yeah, exactly. No sense whatsoever. Change your language depending on it. And if you get a chance, learn theirs and just use their language. Yes?
Speaking of which, what is I/O in your jargon?
Industrial organizational psychology. Yeah, not even close. Another example, do you want to do the hacking example?
It's yours.
All right. This one just amuses me because it happened Monday. I was talking to somebody about giving this talk, and they said, yeah, they were going to this really interesting thing talking about hacking the CIA cloud. And I was like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, there's this, he works for Amazon, and as you may know, Amazon just got a contract to host cloud data for the CIA. Hacking, in the general population, apparently means a brief overview of what this is. Hacking is you're going to show up for an hour and learn what this means for Amazon. Oh, that is not at all what I thought you were talking about. You said a word, I know it doesn't mean what I think it means, let's ask. That's the last step. When you're trying to get people, this is a conversation. That's when you can have these fun moments. If I'm trying to convince you to behave a different way, this is not a conversation we want to keep having because it's derailing, it's completely off topic. You want to keep it focused because this isn't their job. You want to reduce the effort on them and having to have a long, fun as it may be, conversation every time you talk to security probably isn't high on their list of things to do when they've got all that other crap to worry about. All right, so finally, explain, don't scare. Theory, fear versus security behaviors. The challenge is fear versus poor decisions. Solution, explain what's going on. Don't just default to scary. Yeah. So, explain, don't scare. This is again, jargon moment. In my world, this is the arousal behavior inverted U curve. I know, fantastic. Notice I don't have that listed anywhere, because that would be what you remember and probably looking. Anyway, as long as you remember the point and the name, if it makes you giggle, that's fine. This is just saying that depending on where people fall on fear, their behaviors will be better or worse in terms of what you want from security. And if they have no fear, they don't understand what the challenges and problems are, then their security behaviors are crap. Because they don't think there's a problem. I'm just going to go do whatever it is I'm doing and nothing bad's going to happen to me. This is a bad place to be. When they're too high and they're afraid of everything, they don't know how to decide what to do. Because everything means that they open an email, they go to this website, something bad's going to happen to their computer, a bunch of data's going to be lost, it's going to be proprietary information that's going to get online, somebody's going to steal it, they're going to get fired. Anytime they do anything, the world is going to end. They don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. That's another problem. Ideally, what you want is to put them right in the middle in the green zone. Give them enough information to know what to be afraid of. And again, these are all interrelated. What should I be afraid of? And that tells me what I should do. And then they're in the little mid zone. Hopefully, that makes sense. Good. Here's the problem. You put them right there. Every time you say, this is a terrible thing that's going to happen, and it doesn't happen. Here's the problem that's really tough for you guys, is if you say, if you follow this link, something bad could happen. People remember that as, if I follow the link, something bad will happen. That's a very key difference. When something bad does not happen, they move way down here, and you just lost a little bit of credibility. And that's hard to get back. And it's really tough because you don't want that to happen, but that's how it works, unfortunately. But if you try to put everything in the unreasonable fear, if you don't do this, you'll lose your job, if you don't do this, and that's not something you have power over, that's not a promise you can keep, they learn that it's not true. Or they just don't do anything and you haven't done anything except lost credibility. It's a hard place to be, and like I said, there are no easy solutions. This is a process. You have to figure out what works best with you and kind of using these steps and techniques. So again, solution. Put them there. Put them up in the green zone. Give them the information they need at the level they need it to make the correct security decisions.
And that's really difficult because it also depends on your company, your culture, what you're doing. So what you have to do is give them a mental toolbox for how they work in your company. You have to make sure that each time that you give them some tools, you give them maybe two things to do, as we discussed earlier. contact security, and we're going to wipe your box. Whatever the tools are that are the most general, that fixes the most problems in your environment. So what are the best two things, if you had two things to tell your users that they could do, because they're only going to half remember them, and they're probably going to remember one from like 2 jobs ago, so you might get 3 out of this. But think of it, the mental toolbox is very small. You don't want to give them a specific lock picking, right? You don't want to give them a diamond rig that only works on this one situation. You want to give them this one because it works most of the time, and the special stuff you can worry about later. Give them 2 pieces of information, maybe 3, that is the most generic, most useful in your environment. And I can't tell you what that is. You're going to have to look at your environment and figure out what's best for you. For us, we use Ask Security if there's any problems. Just come to us first. Call Ivan. No matter what it is, call Ivan. That's I've kept some of the weirdest calls. But some of the stuff has been, we're getting some of it's been really useful, and we've caught things really early. Because call Ivan if there's anything weird. But yeah, it all depends on your coverage. But don't give them too much. Don't give them a whole bunch of things that are very specialized. Give them a couple of big things that they'll remember that they can act on.
It's the same thing with giving somebody directions. If you're asking how to get somewhere, and somebody says, we can do this route and turn left here and do this, or you can do this other route. It's like, why do I need 2? I don't know anything. I'm trying to get from A to B. Give me one route that you know will work. Good enough. If you give me a second option, I'm just going to conflate the 2 and get confused and lost, and then have to go to something else, and now I'm annoyed. Again, these are all things you know how to do. It's just harder in this context because benefits and security is really nebulous, and it's really a specialized field, obviously. This is what you guys do. And you're trying to convince somebody who isn't a specialist, who doesn't want to be a specialist, how to think like you. Fantastic segue. Sorry. All right, I'll let you flip it. So here's the TJ Maxx.
So one of the examples of the fear thing is the TJ Maxx breach. Everybody remembers the TJ Maxx breach. Possibly. It was in the biggest breach of PCI data history, blah, blah, blah. Terrible thing that's going to happen. I mean, a bunch of news stories came out. Will they lose 75% of their 77% of the customer data because of this breach? Oh my God. This is, finally everybody, holy crap. And we're in the graph. This is TJ Maxx's stock prices over the year around the breach. Anybody figure out where that breach happened? Pretty obvious.
Yep.
Happened there. So results after the breach. So if you tell your users you don't want to be like TJ Maxx, right? You look at that graph and to a business analyst and say, the breach happened there. After the breach, your stock's gone up 30%. I do want that to happen to me. Hell, can we have a couple? I mean, where's, you got to put it in their context. The fear and the result have to match. TJ Maxx responded to their breach. They did the right things, and what people remembered was TJ Maxx was in the news by something they couldn't control. They responded to it well. Not many people got their credit card stolen. They did all the right things. All the background procedures worked. TJ Maxx came out of that better than before. It's a bad example of do this. Like if you do this, you'll end up like TJ Maxx. I remember one of my managers told me was trying to sell that to a VP at the time. Guy looks at this, goes, done. Why are we going to spend money on security? We could end up with 50% stock raise. Make sure you know. If you're predicting the future, be right.
Those are kind of the 4 steps. So, any general questions or specific ones?
Throw things in?
Yep. No? We made perfect sense to everyone. Everyone knows exactly what they're. Okay, cool. Yes.
How do you address manager users that are keep bugging for more specifics or more details, and you don't know how to keep going without getting technical?
That's the thing. If they're asking you, then get technical. Like they've just said, please fill me with your jargon. Then yes, if you get technical, and then they're resisting the jargon? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, like I try to keep things pretty, high level, and then they're like asking for more details, and I keep going, and I can see either they're not glazing over, they're getting frustrated, and it's just like I'm trying to go through all the different ways of how I can say it differently, but nothing's getting through.
For what I've had luck with is, I'll get back to the accept minor change, use a lot of analogies. I've been analogizing stuff a lot. I've talked to a lot of doctors. It's like, what's a firewall? It's like a mask. It's a surgical mask. Good stuff comes out, bad stuff can't come in. Huge oversimplification, but they got it. I mean, just anytime you can analogize with their specialty, it shows that you understand, it shows that you're working with them, and they'll get the high-level concepts, and you can start kind of rolling the analogy farther and farther, and then it'll break down. It'll clearly break down at some point, but at least you got them farther than they were before.
And also, if they're asking for details and then you start giving them details and they glaze over, check back in and like, okay, I've done this one twice. Obviously, I did not answer the question you just asked. Let's try this again. What do you actually want? Figure out what they actually want to know. Because when they're saying technical details, they probably are referring to something else, because when you give them, they just don't care. So, part of an ongoing conversation. Okay, I can tell this isn't what you want. Why don't you try to find out? Could you, this is what I think you just asked me. Is that correct? And it's, again, a basic skill. You have this. Just practice it again, I guess. Analogies and double check. As soon as people glaze over, it's like, all right, there was a miscommunication. I thought I was answering your question. I'm obviously not. Let's try this again. What do you actually want to know? Because I misunderstood.
Stop the conversation, try over this. Hang on, we screwed this up. Let's try this again.
And again, it's presentation. It's not, there's a miscommunication, jerk face. It's, I obviously misunderstood. It doesn't hurt you at all to say, okay, hang on. I am confused. Please assist me. I've made a mistake. That kind of language makes them much more receptive. And also, it shows that you care about what they're doing, and it builds that trust and language of, oh, okay, well, you're not going to give me crap. You're not going to blame me. I can come to you and get more information, and in depth. You obviously have the skill set. We know as you go on. But not what I want to know right now, but if I need that, I know I can go to you. So you can kind of establish yourself as an expert, and one of the things about experts is they're generally like, yeah, if I don't know that, it's because I don't have to. That's kind of an expert attitude, which is a fun one to have if you can pull it off. All right, so this is the summary. You can't make people do something, and I'm going to keep saying that because you can't. You can help them decide what you want to do. Here's the 5 things. Test what you're asking first. Use their language, reduce their work, use a reasonable tone, so don't scare them, and explain why they want to do it. If you remember nothing, please remember this slide.
It's too many.
Yeah, I know. But those are the 3 you need to know. That's why they're first. Yeah.
Is there a place we can access the slides later?
We'll be putting them online.
I think, doesn't BSides do that?
We'll be
Yeah.
wording it.
Yeah.
If
They'll be
not,
available.
I can give you a card and email it to you.
Yeah, we can email.
Yeah.
Because come Monday, I don't know how much of all this I'm going to say.
We'll email.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You don't need theory. Never mind. You'll probably remember 1 or 2. That's all I need. You'll remember what sticks most, what sticks best, because it suits you at the time. We are needing to leave, so if there's any other questions or you just want to chat specifics, we'll be in the Q&A room.
Thank you very much.